Welcome to the Smarter Business Podcast, where we seek advice from business owners on how to make your business smarter. The guest today is Sesha Yalamanchili of On the Mark Consulting. Sesha talks a little bit about how her business has changed due to COVID and the growth mindset. If you like what you hear today, please subscribe and share this with your friends. If you're watching the video version of this podcast, you may notice it looks a little bit different than some of the other ones that we've done. I'm gonna chalk that up to human error. It looks like I must have locked in on Sesha's podcast feed before we started the interview. So enjoy this Sesha-only Smarter Business Podcast. So welcome to this episode of the Smarter Business Podcast. This episode, we have Sesha Yalamanchili of On the Mark Consulting. Sesha, I got that right?
You did.
Hope. All right.
Absolutely.
Great. And we're going to talk a little bit today about learning on the internet. So Sesha, I'm going to let you go ahead and just introduce yourself, introduce your company, and then we'll kind of roll on from there.
Hi, I'm Sesha Yalamanchili. I've been part of the business community in Western New York for over 20 years. I'm more in the last stages of my career here. I've started a consultancy, On the Mark Consultancy, which has really allowed me to follow my passion, which is how to help people thrive and be at their authentic and best selves in their professional lives. So I have a consultancy that does one-on-one professional coaching. I work inside of organizations to help their teams figure out how they can be most inclusive and work to their very best potential. So those are a couple of things that we offer.
That's excellent. A great rundown and important work these days, maybe more than ever, because we are recording this kind of as New York State is starting to come a little bit back to life from the COVID pandemic. So can you give me a little description of what your business looks like now versus what it looked like maybe before everything started to shut down?
Sure. So a big portion of my business was a lot of face-to-face, one-on-one coaching. But more importantly, a large share of what I would do is get on a plane or work right here in Western New York in front of a room with a physical room with a group of motivated professionals that wanted to figure out, have more self-awareness, but also figure out how they could be the best teammate, bring their best selves to an entire collaborative effort that a team has to go through every day. So for me, before that, things that I would use was the energy from the room. I could be earshot to conversations that were happening when I set a group off in to have a discussion or an activity. I had developed a seasoned set of skills to really, in a sense, read the room and draw from the energy in the room to really create an environment where people could learn and have their own insights. And a big part of that was not for me to be the sage at the front of the room embarking knowledge on them, but rather creating these environments where they could have exchanges to help each other have breakthrough insights, because the whole point was to create a collaborative effort to start that in that room and have it continue long after I'd be gone. So as you can imagine, when the ability to physically meet together, it was hugely disruptive to my entire, not only my business model, but the carefully curated skill sets that I had developed. So I had a real hard time and had to actually really go within self to some of the very things that I taught teams and business leaders on how to adapt to change and disruption. So I actually pulled out some of my own content and had to practice that. But a big part of that, and is also part of the reason why you and I connected, Neil, was to really try to understand what is possible from a connection point of view through a lens. I was very skeptical, felt that, this is not even possible to create that same kind of connection. But what can you do to really humanize the virtual experience? And so I made it a big part of my charter during this time to learn from the best and really attack it from all angles. So even just more recently, I was at a conference out on the West Coast, but very much from the same location here. That was about how do you create intimate connection and deep learning through virtual facilitation. So things like that with professional facilitators who are learning, but also to partner with folks like yourself and your network to really understand how to optimally set up your video, your sound, to create the best kind of experience that you can.
Excellent.
So kind of a long-winded answer, but I feel much more on a path of innovation through the disruption of COVID.
Excellent. Well, I'll ask a couple kind of questions along the way from what you laid out there. So I guess if there's one kind of way that you have found to be able to still have some of that connection, like you were talking about losing that in the room feel, is there any like single tip that people can use to, or is it a deep well that you can't pare down, I guess, so
there's some a couple of overarching themes with a lot of tips and tricks inside of each of them, but I think I could maybe share some of the overarching themes that I'm coming to understand.
Sure.
And one of them is when you're taking a group of learners through an experience, it's no different than when you're in the room, that it's really more about the learning that takes place between the learners and less so about you. So you put them in an exercise, set them up, but a lot of it is what takes place in the breakout rooms. So not just using the breakout rooms as a feature in Zoom or WebEx or whatever tool you're using, Hangouts or Teams, it's about setting them up for optimal learning and sharing and insight. So you're really setting them up for peer-on-peer review. So that's one. And then the other one is to be really intentional before you even start the session as to what is it that the transformative learning that you're setting out for them to do. So when they enter their session, they are one way. When they leave, what is it that you want them to be changed in what way? So when you think about that and then design from that point of view, which that's another really important thing. Then it's how do you use the tips and tricks of technology, such as effectively using the chat, or perhaps using a whiteboard, or looking right into the camera and creating connection that way. It all comes together and it makes you think about how are you using those things for the purpose of transforming, having them have a transformative experience.
All right. Yeah. Well, that's the more than one angle you have to take to really make that transition then, for sure.
For sure.
So let me ask you this, because we do have, we focus a little bit on video in this podcast. How has the use, and in your case, it's going to be streaming video, how has video helped kind of, I guess, hold it all together? Like it's somewhat obvious that now you don't have to fly to the West Coast. Like you mentioned, you can just hop on a video chat. But I don't know, does it go any deeper than that? Is it anything beyond the, well, now I'm there, Is it, I'll let you take it from there if that question's clear enough, I guess.
Yeah. I would say for me and the work that we've done together, it's actually enabled me to not have to focus on video. So in essence, you have helped me understand how to be a little bit more autonomous through one, what equipment is the best to invest in, and then how do I optimally set that up. And I'm realizing that there's an ongoing learning practice, but what all of that does is it frees me up from thinking about how am I showing up, because you're helping, and everything behind the setup is I'm there. I can be stable and confident that my physical presence is going to be stable in how I'm showing up. So my body language, my facial expressions, those are those connections in the room. I want to be able to read those from others, but I don't want to shortchange others from being able to read that from me. So I can fully be present and focus on it and not worry that I'm not being heard or optimally seen in the way that I think is going to foster the learning environment. So it's very freeing to have the right things in place, know how to set it up, and then fully be present with your learners.
Excellent. Yeah. And to give everyone who's listening or watching a little bit of context, Sesha and I originally met just via Zoom when you signed up for one of my free webcam coaching sessions. And we did some stuff with lighting and with other pieces of the video. And then we kind of progressed beyond that, where now Sesha has one of these Vidwheel Creator Network home studio kits with the M50 camera and the Yeti mic and the ring light and everything. And we've worked quite a bit on getting that set up to work for what you need it to work for. Yeah, that's good that it's now worry free, right? You know, because
it is, yeah.
every once in a while you gotta figure something out, but that maybe is a good transition into the Creator Network itself. So you had video challenges that you've already outlined. What equipment? How do I do this? How do I make sure it's going to work right? Do you feel like the Creator Network, either the consulting calls with myself, or kind of the support and I don't know community built around the group that's involved, has been helpful in terms of kind of making it easier for you to transition to this video based version of your business?
Yeah, actually, in some really surprising ways. Right now, you hear a lot about people talking about the need to be fully inclusive in a network. So for me, and the idea that bringing a lot of diversity of perspective can really be of benefit. So I spend a lot of time in groups that I belong to that are all coaches or training and facilitators like myself. But this group, we all come together with the common purpose of what is the possibility of video in all different formats to propel what we're doing forward. And at the heart of it, there's human connection, there's telling an authentic story, there's educating or teaching or sharing in a really authentic way. So hearing that from people who are doing it in 100 different ways than myself has surprisingly been really benefit to me in all the ways that people talk about that having a diverse team would be. So for example, it's expanding the possibility of thinking about how I might be able to do what I do through some YouTube presence. That's not something I ever would have considered or even really understood what a channel like that did. But there's somebody in our group that's the main crux of what they're doing. And it's been so eye-opening to me. I have the term in my mind of this network as the possibilities network. That's what it represents to me.
That's excellent.
So and I love that we're all rooted. It's all kind of rooted around the camera, but it goes in so many different directions and possibilities.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of different paths to take around video right now, and yeah, I'm glad to hear some of those words. That's kind of what I'm trying to create there, is that a lot of different ways to look at it. You learn a little over here, and it does open up some different routes for folks to consider as they go forward. All right. So we're going to move on to the main event of the podcast. This is the question that ties every episode, no matter who's answering, together. What is one thing that you have done to make your business or a client's business smarter? And you have to pick one. That's what makes it fun for me, anyway.
Mm-hmm. I think, so this is the connective tissue question that connects all of them together.
Yes.
For me, the answer is actually the connective tissue behind everything that I offer and do. And it's helping clients understand the value of allowing people to show up as themselves and not have to really edit who they are, in being authentic in the workplace, teaching leaders that level of diversity and self-identification is the most human thing we could do in the workplace, and to show them that by doing that, the results from a business standpoint, the typical things that we like to measure, are exponentially better. But the human, and that is by creating a human experience that's individualized for each person. It's not easy to do, but the value and benefit to doing that is huge. So for me, everything I do, I look at through the lens of that, and that's how I feel I've helped my clients and businesses.
Excellent. Yeah, I like that. We have not got that response yet. So help it, making people within businesses kind of be their authentic selves is the base there, right? And
Absolutely.
that's probably more important than ever, right? As people are going to continue to have more remote workforces, there's going to be, I would imagine, a pretty prolonged, decentralized kind of business structure compared to what folks have been used to in the past. So,
Yes. And in addition to that, we also have just a really moment in time where we're looking at equity and diversity and in our workplaces, and really challenging our status quo in those areas. So to help leaders really understand, how to do that well, and what the benefit of doing that is, and how they can create cultures and be very deliberate about it that allow that to happen.
Excellent. Yeah. Great answer. Great answer. So we have one last piece, which is, I throw this on every interview that I conduct, whether it's testimonials or these podcasts or anything, and it's just an open-ended question. If you have anything that you feel like could be valuable to the audience, or something you just want to throw in there, a lot of folks have done things like suggesting a book, software, some mentality based, related to their business. If you have anything to add, the floor is yours, Sesha.
Well, I might suggest a model that had really changed me. And many people are familiar with the growth mindset model. And basically, it's challenging yourself to be more in a growth mindset at any given time than a fixed mindset. And just in a nutshell, a fixed mindset is that anything that you're doing or striving for, you have put this pressure on yourself to do it and be good at it out of the gate. And a fixed mindset is really about getting better. So the Creator Network, the Video Creator Network, is about constant iteration to get better. It's about getting in front of the camera and making mistakes and failing your way through improvement. And being in that mindset actually scientifically generates better results. So if there's anything, Carol Dweck wrote a book on it, and there's a lot of materials out there, but I feel like it's applicable to almost anything. Classrooms are adapting it in schools, organizations are adapting it. And for me, it's something that I look at personally, because I'm a perfectionist, and I used to think that was a good thing, and that I wouldn't put anything out until it was absolutely perfect. But I learned that it actually can hold you back.
Yeah, that's growth mindset is an incredibly important thing, especially, once again, not to tie everything back to our current situation, but being able to kind of let go of some of the norms that were going on before, and adjust accordingly, or grow in a different direction if one direction's no longer viable or available, is absolutely applicable. And the growth mindset overall is something that a lot of businesses are starting to look for now. Not to tie this back to football, but that's a big piece behind the Buffalo Bills coach Sean McDermott is always talking growth mindset, and they pick players based around that. So
Right.
it's prevalent, and it's important in a lot of different businesses. Obviously, you brought up education. That's a great place to start instilling that in folks before they get out there into the business world. So
Yeah.
I love it.
A good
Growth mindset.
Yeah. A good kind of thing that I heard about growth mindset that I liked is just imagine a world where your grades in school were about comparing not to 100, and where you are against a scale from 0 to 100, but it's where you are against your past self. So where you were 2 weeks ago versus where you are now, that's your grade, is looking at improvement. So that's, and imagine if we took that into the workplace, in performance reviews and performance discussions. Nobody ever really likes either giving a performance review or getting one.
Right.
But if we change the dialogue and the conversation to be about, this is about, let's just reflect on where you were and where you are today. And let's look at, celebrate some of the growth that's happened in there.
Yeah, I think that's a better way to look at it, right? You don't get compared to your neighbor, get compared to yourself. And if everybody makes those incremental changes, then everybody's getting better all the time. So that is I like that a lot, and I try to have that mindset. You try to have that mindset. A lot of folks in the Creator Network, I think, have that mindset going too. So I think that has run through our regular questions here, Sesha. So I'm going to say thank you. And what we've been doing is waving, because we used to have the handshake at the end of the podcast, but just a little goodbye and thank you for coming out, and great insights, Sesha. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It was my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so that does it for this episode. Please visit On the Mark Consulting. And once again, if you like what you heard, subscribe and share this episode with your friends. Thank you.